Former NFL lineman Mark Schlereth resurrected Lamar Jackson haters as he regurgitated one of the most laziest and trashiest narratives about the NFL's most polarizing player, Lamar Jackson. I don't want to hear from all of you that are telling me, well, they don't get them weapons. How many first-round wide receivers do you need to draft? I don't want to hear any of that BS. So that'll be the clip that's going to be all over the place. That'll be the clip that you hear today, right? I want to focus on the next piece because he went on to try to break it down in regards to, well, let's see the weapons that the Ravens gave Lamar Jackson in the first round, right? So that's the piece I want to focus on, and that's why I'm here doing this video. So let's tap into that piece.
They drafted first round talent. They've drafted tight ends in the first round. They've drafted 3 different wide receivers since 2018 in the first round. I mean, Aaron Rodgers went, what, 16, 17?
All right, now then he gets into his boomer bag, right? So his main thing is the Ravens have tried to give Lamar Jackson help, and for whatever reason, he's leaning more towards Lamar. That it hasn't worked, right? The talent hasn't worked, and he thinks Lamar Jackson should be more responsible in making that talent be more than what it is, right? Because the Ravens have taken first-round picks for multiple tight ends and 3 first-round wide receivers. So let's go ahead and verify that information, right? So we have the Ravens draft history here. Let's go ahead down to 2018. That was the year he mentioned, right? 2018, let's go ahead down to 2018. 2018 is the year they drafted Lamar, right? So before Lamar, it was Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst is a tight end. So that's one of the multiple tight ends, because he put S on it. That's one of the multiple tight ends that they drafted. Let's see Hayden Hurst's production. Same draft they got Mark Andrews later in the draft, by the way. But Hayden Hurst, right? Let's go ahead and go down to what his numbers are. Hayden Hurst, this looks like a bunch of mid. This looks like a bunch of mid from one Hayden Hurst. So if you're trying to sell me that Lamar Jackson was supposed to do more with this first round talent in Hayden Hurst, then why the hell haven't the 3 other teams that Hayden Hurst has been on found a way to utilize Hayden Hurst? So if it's supposed to be Lamar Jackson's fault that Hayden Hurst was drafted in the first round and didn't produce anything, well, we're looking at the Falcons, the Bengals, so Joe Burrow. I'm going to assume Stink thinks that Joe Burrow is better than Lamar Jackson. Joe Burrow didn't know what to do with Hayden Hurst either. And that was the most healthiest he's been and the most starts he's ever gotten. It's with Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow couldn't even figure out anything with Hayden Hurst. So is it really Lamar Jackson, or was it Hayden Hurst the reason why he didn't pan out as a first round talent? So we'll let that go, right? So Hayden Hurst, a bust. That next draft, 2019, they go for Hollywood Brown in the first round. So that's the first of the 3 wide receivers that is being mentioned in that clip. So let's go to Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown is now a Kansas City Chief. So if Lamar couldn't figure out, and it looks like, Kyler Murray couldn't figure it out, well, now maybe the Michael Jordan of the NFL can figure it out in Patrick Mahomes. But anyway, the best years up to this point of Hollywood Brown's career have been with Lamar Jackson. The 1,000-yard receiver, the 1,000-yard season that he has was with Lamar Jackson. So again, you're telling me that a guy that is only known as a speedster, does not have the greatest route tree, is not the best in terms of the hands. The best thing he could do is stretch the field vertically. We're now going to blame that on Lamar Jackson. And then when he went to the Arizona Cardinals and had a quarterback that most people might even think is better than Lamar in Kyler Murray, now even those numbers pale in comparison. So again, is it Lamar Jackson's fault that Hollywood Brown's hands are shaky? Is it Lamar Jackson's fault that the route tree for Hollywood Brown is limited? Seems to me like that's just Hollywood Brown was drafted in the first round. It was probably over-evaluated and overdrafted for that position. Yet and still, we have folks out here that claim to be NFL analysts and experts just because they played the game, telling us that, no, it's Lamar Jackson's fault, that Hollywood Brown is on his 3rd team and still hasn't really broken out. Okay, we'll move on. Rashad Bateman is the 2nd of the 3 first-round wide receivers. So we have Rashad Bateman. Now, he has become the ultimate coulda, shoulda, woulda. He's supposed to be something. He was drafted to be something, but has he actually been something? What has Rashad Bateman been for this Baltimore Raven team? So we're talking about a guy that had 9 starts over the first 2 years of his career. This is who Mark Schlereth is slandering Lamar Jackson for. Lamar Jackson is supposed to be, the head of the medical staff and head of the training staff to make sure that Rashard Bateman suits up to play. Because over 12 games, he only started 4. And the next year, he only played 6 games and started 5. And then he had that injury that took him away for the rest of that season. So then last year, we get a full year and still a bunch of mids. 16 games, 12 starts. So again, is that Lamar Jackson's fault? Or is it the fact that Rashard Bateman is a coulda, shoulda, woulda who's been hindered by, a franchise that the players voted on themselves to be one of the worst medical staffs and training staffs in the entire National Football League? So again, is Lamar supposed to be team doctor and head of the medical staff too, or just be the franchise quarterback? Again, this is what we're getting with lazy trash narratives like the one that Mark Schlereth is getting off. When talking about Zay Flowers, we're looking at the one guy that was able to come in and immediately make an impact. Now, a lot of that has to do with a new scheme and a new system, and we'll touch on that and how that impacts the whole Lamar Jackson narrative in a second here. But when it comes to Zay Flowers, he's the only one that has been able to come in and make an impact right away. And part of that is Lamar maturing. Part of that is also a new philosophy. And part of that is that Zay Flowers, out of the 3 receivers that were taken in the first round by the Ravens, Zay Flowers looks to be the only one that was actually worthy of being taken in the first round. So we're going to sit here and blame Lamar for the drafting of Hollywood Brown and Rashard Bateman, but not give him credit for Zay Flowers, and Zay Flowers is working out. Now, is Zay Flowers your perennial number 1 wide receiver? No, but he's a good number 2. But right now, he's a number 1 by default because, yes, the Ravens have not given Lamar Jackson any real weapons because they've tried and they've struck out. They even had to go into the free agent pool where they had Sammy Watkins and Odell Beckham just last year. So this has become a theme here where people are trying to find ways to just tear down Lamar Jackson with no merit. I've never seen now a 2-time MVP at that position in that sport be so open for slander. I've never seen it. He did it his way the first MVP. Now he did it more so their way this second MVP, and you have folks still out here trying to slander him. Now let's get into the Greg Roman piece, okay? Still can't find that second tight end up taking the first round. Isaiah Likely was not a first round pick. So Schlereth was wrong there too. So he's trying to use the numbers for the first round picks in terms of the receivers to make the point sound more strong. It's really just the 2 receivers. It's Hollywood Brown and Rashard Bateman. Brown's already off the squad. He's on his 3rd team already. Rashard Bateman, he probably will not be re-upped unless he has a breakout year this year. And then Zay Flowers literally just got there. So the Schlereth point of the wide receivers is a weak one, but it sounds good when you're trying to put it into a nice little tight little sound bite like they did on the podcast. So let's not forget Greg Roman. If we're going to talk about the fact of how the offense looks staggered, how the offense lacks creativity, how the offense, in the first few years of Lamar Jackson's career up until last year when Tom Monken finally came in there and kind of breathed some life into it, this offense was predicated off running QBs because that's literally all Greg Roman knows, okay? Look at where he was prior. He was in San Francisco, and if you look at the passing offense, this is team ranks, okay? You see it here in the corner. This is team ranks. 31st in passing attempts. That's with the San Francisco 49ers. That's with Kaepernick. That's when Cap was cooking, right? Okay, we have 31st, 32nd. So 3 out of the 4 years he was in San Francisco, they were either next to last or dead last in passing attempts. Yet we have people like Mark Schlereth out here questioning the capabilities of the quarterback, right? Then he goes to Buffalo and he has Tyrod Taylor, right? Tyrod Taylor and Shady McCoy. Again, next to last or dead last the 2 years he was in Buffalo. Then he goes to Baltimore, and then he has Lamar Jackson, and then again, he is dead last the first 2 years. He had a fluke anomaly year where he snuck into the top 10, and then right back to the bottom half at 28th his last year before he finally decided to move on. So again, we're using numbers and stats and hot takes to try to craft the narrative, but when you actually dissect the data and dissect the actuality of it, you realize how little Lamar Jackson has into what has actually been crafted, the narrative around him. Because how can you sit here and say that this is on Lamar when I've showed you the lack of weapons that they've put around him? And now I'm showing you that even his OC was not built to help him get better, which in Stink's theory would have made Lamar make the weapons better. So when you're hindered by someone who only knows my system only works with dynamic running quarterbacks, okay, cool. So I'm hampered by play calling and scheme. And now I'm further hampered by the lack of weapons of the team that's supposed to be really good at drafting in the Baltimore Ravens. Ozzie Newsome, salute. They're supposed to be really known long time for being their prowess at drafting. That has not been the case offensively over the last back half after Ozzie Newsome stepped down. So now we have a quasi-new regime in there, and they have failed to surround this man with help. Yet and still, we have pundits reaching out, trying to throw shade. So anyway, if you want to look at the data and really get into passing stats, right? Passing stats from last year. You would think that a team like the San Francisco 49ers would be, with all the weapons that they have, the Kittles. You know, we're talking about Ayuk, Debo, and Christian McCaffrey. And then you talk about the silverback gorilla, Trent Williams, anchoring as left tackle on that O-line. That offense should be so dynamic, right? That offense should be prolific. Well, let's look at their passing numbers. This is accurate. Their passing attempts, they threw the ball less than the Baltimore Ravens last year. That's a real thing that happened. In fact, if you go across the board in the passing numbers, the numbers are eerily similar. So again, we're talking about scheme. They have an offensive genius in Kyle Shanahan. They have all the weapons. When Brock Purdy drops back, he looks out and scans the field, and there's literally all pros everywhere. All pros running routes for him everywhere. Now let's spin that to what Lamar Jackson sees when he dropped back last year. He has an old Odell Beckham. He's got Zay Flowers still learning to navigate the route tree at this level. He's got a Rashard Bateman that is finally healthy for the first time and is maybe not confident in what his body can do at that point. If he's lucky, he's got a hobbled Mark Andrews trying to figure it out, trying to find a way to get open. And then he's got Isaiah Likely trying to navigate, how do I fit into any of this? And they go wonder why that man won the MVP, because if you would have just given him half of what Brock Purdy got, half, can you imagine how much more success the Ravens would have had? How much better the stats could have been for Lamar Jackson? That's the problem people are ignoring here. Lamar is doing all of this with substandard help. He has Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews was beset by injuries, missed time. Zay Flowers was still learning the route tree at this level. Odell Beckham is a shell of his former self. And Lamar still went out there and carried that team to the AFC Championship game. And if it weren't for Jordan getting in his way, he might be hoisting a Lombardi. The fact of the matter is that we have looked at the Baltimore Ravens continuously try to put sub-tier talent around their best player and ask him, please, sir, do more. Meanwhile, with the 49ers, it's Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo. You can have whatever you like. It's T.I. and Rihanna. You can have whatever you like. This take was done for what I'm doing right now. This take was done to get clicks. This take was done to get his name out there. This is what it's supposed to do. It's July. It's a dead time. Everyone's talking NBA free agency and all the other stuff. We're hitting the doldrums of sports. This is the time to jump out the window and say that thing. And Mark Schlereth is trying to get himself in that mix of being one of those people that you can count on to say the thing. So sports media strikes again. Another lazy trash narrative is being pushed out to the masses. But thankfully, y'all have me to come out here and tear them down brick by brick by brick.